The bad part, well, if you got a lot of money and you have contacts with the producers of the game, you could get some in-game stuff. From what we do, I could judge we're probably the most, fanatic about it. One of the Pretz leaders logged into his account to record a YouTube video to showcase PA vulnerability that everyone could log into everybody's account.
Can you introduce yourself for the people that don't know you?
Hello everyone, I'm BTJ. I've played Black Desert since Korean OBT. I'm currently raid leading for one of the guilds in United Community, which is one of the three biggest communities in Russian BDO currently. And it's nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Okay, so you said you got into BDO at the start of the Korean open beta. How did you get into BDO? Like, how did you learn about the existence of the game?
For Russia, BDO was something as a safe harbor after Lineage, because when Pearl Abyss first announced BDO, I think that was 2 years before the actual OBT, it was announced as a hardcore game, as the usual Korean games like Lineage was, and the hype was very big, especially after RH kind of failed in our region, so everybody was waiting patiently day by day for the BDO launch. That's how we got to know it. We have a website in the Russian community that's focused on MMORPGs, so everyone just knew about the game from the forums. That's pretty much all there is to it.
Okay. And would you say MMORPGs are big in Russia?
I would say the community is kind of big. Currently, I would say with BDO it got bigger, but most definitely MMORPGs has less audience even in Russia than other games, because the genre doesn't have a lot of variety currently, but BDO keeps the flow for now at least. So, well, maybe after BDO, if nothing else in the next few years comes out, maybe the community is gonna be kind of disappointed and less players are gonna play MMORPGs. Well, I don't know. I can't really say because I don't keep track of new projects. Not yet, at least.
How was the start of BDO in Russia? Because I think Russia is, correct me if I'm wrong, the second oldest server after Korea, or like the third maybe?
Yes, it is. It is the second. It is the second. Well, it's two-sided. I could say that compared to any other game that started in Russia, BDO launch was probably the smoothest one. There were no queues, there were no server crashes, nothing like that, which Russia is used to, especially after Arcade, when you had to, 24 hours queue up and then you could play, unless you get disconnected, which happened oftenly. But yeah, that's Arcade, whatever. So yeah, BDO launch was actually good, despite the fact that, truth be said, BDO on launch on Russia was a total shitfest regarding third-party software. It was very common within the high-tier guilds to fishbot. Some guilds even used something outrageous on sieges, like no cooldown ulti use, 200% warrior ultis at that moment, Calphian content, like second month of the game. But overall, yeah, for a regular player that doesn't see the in-depth of what's happening in the big tier wars, the launch was definitely smooth compared to other games. I would say even Russian launch was better than EU launch, because on the top of my head, if I remember it right, because I was playing the EU launch did have some connectivity issues,
It wasn't too bad. I remember.
No, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
I remember it was surprisingly smooth.
Yes. BDO launches were actually smooth in Korea, in Russia, in Europe, compared to other games, like probably best of the best. Especially if you look at today's new world, BDO launch was like 10 out of 10.
It's very surprising. It's usually the thing is easiest to fuck up in an MMO.
Yeah, true.
And to put things into perspective, because now we're talking about BDO launch, but I bet for so many players, even like you could say Steam players, I don't know, veteran players of BDO, but for so many players, the launch is something that they maybe don't have a grasp of what was actually like. Like, can you put into perspective in time as well? How was the launch experience? Like, what version of the game did Russia get, and when was it?
Russia got a raw version of the game with all the Calfian content, plus 15 gear, and the version that still had PvP penalties, 2% of the current XP, and a chance to drop your gems. That was the version we got at the launch, and I think the next update for us was Xarka, if I remember correctly, or Medaya. I don't really remember the chronology of the things. But yeah, we got the raw version with 5 classes. Tamer was the 5th class for our launch. That was the only difference from us in Korea. Besides that, I think no, not much. Oh, actually, yeah, the game was very casual. After Korean launch, the Korean launch was actually like hardcore. You leveled up to 50. That was a pain in the ass. You started grinding at level 50. That was your second pain in the ass. But yeah, Russian release was very more casual. It just felt that the mobs are weaker, the grinding is, better, faster, and yeah, that was the difference between our versions, I would say.
Okay, and when was this? 2014?
Um, I think we celebrated 6 years of Russian BDO in autumn, this autumn. I think that's 2015, right?
15, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 14 was Korea, 15 Russian, I guess
Yeah.
16, yeah. Okay, and it was published by my.com. How was my.com as a publisher?
No, BDO was published by a company called GameNet.
Oh,
BDO
GameNet.
was yeah,
Right.
BDO was their first actual big game, and well, it was two-sided. Like, for example, good things about GameNet. You have your customer support team lead in Skype if you're a big guild, and if any technical issues happen during work hours, you Skype him. The issue is solved within 1 hour, maybe even within 20 minutes. That's the good part.
Okay.
The bad part, well, if you've got a lot of money and you have contacts with the producers of the game, you could get some in-game stuff for big money.
Really?
Yes. For example, before the maintenance, somebody could, like, nothing drawn. Like, the actual item exists and was enchanted in the game, blah, blah, blah. Before the maintenance, everybody goes offline. The item gets listed. Well, something happens, and 30 seconds after the maintenance started, you're not disconnected from the server. I mean, you get the idea how that happens.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't outrageous. It wasn't like every 10th person on the server. It was like unique people, but yeah, that happened. And that's
I think
common for
just the
Russian
fact
region.
the fact that that happens even once, I think it's pretty outrageous.
That's common for the Russian region. It's not like GameNet unique. It's here and there.
Okay.
Like my.com was publishing Revelation Online, and I think there was this issue with a lot of players that were accused in gold buying. Some were gold buying, some weren't. And my.com in the supper ticket, they demanded for the equivalent money from the cash shop to be donated and then deducted so the account would get unbanned. So like there's a lot of stuff like that happening in the Russian region. We are used to it. That's nothing outrageous for us, so it's just something to
Okay.
mention.
So it's like it's not accepted, but people like know that happens and deal with it.
Yeah, we kind of, we know it's useless to try to, fight with it. Same with, like, I was a very, crusader style warrior against third party software, but after 2 years and maybe 3 years of trying to work it out with the publishers, I just got to know that yeah, that's just not gonna happen. Nobody's interested. Not PA, not GameNet. Well, GameNet was interested, but they didn't have the manpower to actually deal with it.
Okay. How would you say GameNet was received by the community overall? Was it
Uh,
positive, negative, or just mixed, as you said?
while GameNet was around, it was mixed, and right after PA got around, I would say everybody was thinking of GameNet of something nostalgic and
Okay.
was actually treating GameNet as something that was kind of better because it was easier to work with the community managers, it was easier to work with customer support. Well, probably the main issue is the customer support because in comparison, PA support is just it doesn't exist in comparison with GameNet because in GameNet you got an answer within 2 working days any ticket. In PA, you get an answer up to 1 month, and usually it's 1 month. It's not like time to time.
Hmm. Does Pearl Abyss have an office in Russia?
No, they don't. They have community managers that resident in Seoul, in Korea.
Right. Okay. I see. Hmm.
I think
Okay.
they had an office, if I'm not mistaken, but currently, from the live streams they do, the Russian community managers, they are in Korea, and I think they're not planning to move out.
Okay. Let's kind of do a few step backs. Can you tell me your experience in the game, the first few years, I guess, like what class you started with or what class you played, and your
Until I
first guild?
started, until I started raid leading, which was I think on the second year of Russian release, I was all day playing Sork. That was my only class.
Nice.
Well, Sork was probably one of the strongest classes since Korean launch. Well, at least that's how I remember her.
Yeah, the
Russia
Dark
was the
Flame
same.
spam.
Yeah, Dark Flame was fun, uber fun to play. Well, I'm not like saying that a lot of skillful players played Sword, but it was really fun to play. It was a very dynamic class compared to others like Giant, Archer, I mean Ranger. So yeah, it was very fun to play. The PvP back then, at least personally for me, it felt a lot better. Yeah, it was kind of slow, maybe not so much skill based as now, but it just felt more aesthetic. Like you understood what's happening around you. You were managing your cooldowns. You were actually trying to properly CC lock because you could CC lock, and it was just a question of your knowledge of your class. How can you perma CC lock someone? Not depending on your gear, not depending on everyone's other gear. So yeah, for me personally, the vanilla gameplay of BDO, PvP wise, or grind wise, it was a shit fest, but PvP wise, it was way better, at least for me. And yeah, Sark until Awakening came out was just the dream class I would play, 24/7 in any game. It doesn't matter if it's BDO or not. Sadly, it wasn't the case with the Awakening. I don't know, maybe I just lost flow of the class when it came out, but by then I was already raid leading, and to be honest, on the Russian region, you either play the game or you raid lead. You can't really, do those things at the same time, or you'll be bad at both of them.
Can you tell me some stories about like I guess how the siege guilds in the meta evolved the first few years? Were there factions? Was there like a dominant guild? How did it work?
Okay, so Russian region at the start had 3 guilds, well, actually 3 factions that contained 4 guilds. One faction was the guild Pretz that exists till now. It's pretty strong, one of the 3 strongest guilds in our server. And they factioned with a guild named, well, in Russian it's OS, but if you translate it in English, it's FS, Fire Scorpions. So they allied together at the start of the server. The second guild was Just Play. I was their member at Korean launch, but wasn't their member on Russia. But I just keep track of the current situation in the siege wars. And the third side was IDDQD. The main. Also, I forgot about Black Label. Black Label was also a strong guild, but in comparison with the other guilds, they only had just one roster of 100 people. The other guilds were 200 plus, maybe even 300 plus, if I remember that correctly. So yeah, the main war was for the first 4 months was between Just Play and Preds plus Fire Scorpions. The main place of their war was Calphion, and if I remember correctly, the first 3 sieges of territory wars were won by Just Play, But as I said, we had a lot of issues with our high tier PvP guilds regarding using third party software. And in Prets, there was a lot of people that were using phishing bots, which gave advantage on the early stage of the game. I'm not saying Just Play and IDDQD didn't use it. Obviously, everyone did, sadly. But in Preds, it was a massive thing. Like, you could see probably 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 players botting every day, every night, which gave them a level advantage, obviously, and was kind of a silver advantage at that moment as well, because if a person grinds 10 hours a day, he doesn't grind as much as a fishing bot does for 24 hours a day. So yeah, Preds got an advantage, a big one. There were some videos regarding Preds members using software, like I said before, no cooldown using of ultis. I remember a warrior that just was on the Calfian siege in Mancha Forest. During siege, he was just jumping around 5 times in a row using his 200% ulti, just one clip, 20-second clip. So yeah, that was the thing for Prets at that moment. It's not a thing for now, but it's not something to forget about. After 4 months of their war, Preds won Just Play in Calpheon, and I think the last siege in Calpheon was like Just Play brought 3 guilds, and also a coalition of another 3 smaller guilds came to Calpheon to kill Preds within the Calpheon castle, but didn't manage to do that. That was pretty shocking because 600 people not being able to push out the castle was something we couldn't think about. But it is what it is. We lost that siege, and after that, Just Play as a hard-hitting whale guild started to collapsing. A lot of people were either quitting the game or quitting the guild. So yeah, Just Play fell out of the top tier top tier guilds, and only IDDQD and Preds were remaining. I don't really remember in depth how their war between themselves went on. I think at the end of it, it was like 2-3 months long, which Preds won it again. Uh, After that, what happened after that? There was a lot of things happening actually in the siege scene. I can't really remember them in depth, but
Mm.
I think on the second year of the game, I was a member of the guild called Black Sails. I think it was either second or third year of the game. Our 100-man guild became pretty strong. Well, compared to the main raid of Prets, Prets always had at least 2, sometimes 3 rosters. Currently, they have 3. So yeah, our first guild became, in comparison, plus minus the same as Prets. It depends on the terrain and stuff like that. But yeah, we were kind of equal. So we also started our own war with Prets. I think we fairly won only 2 sieges against them, like 1v1, 2v2 sieges. But at the long run, we also allied with Fire Scorpions that were previously allied with Preds at the start of the game, and before us, they were allied with White Ravens. We'll come back to White Ravens a bit later. So yeah, at the long run, we had probably 2 years of war with Preds, maybe 1.5 years, and then our guild lead quit the game. Uh, Obviously disbanded our guild because, like, in Russia, if a guild leader quits, most of the time the guild gets disbanded because either nobody wants to take leadership on himself, because obviously it's an actual job to do it, or if the guild is related to one person, the guild leader, and it gets disbanded, well, obviously it's time to just carry on. Uh, and after that, I think that was the 4th year of the game when we disbanded. I took a 1.5 years break, and then I came back to Raid League in my current guild, which is named Black Scorpions, which was the second guild of Fire Scorpions community at that moment. So currently, we have 3 big guilds on the Russian region, which is United, the community I represent, Prets, and White Ravens. That's the current situation. We also have mid-tier guilds such as Uprising. Um, I don't know how to translate the second guild, to be honest.
You can just say it in Russian. I think it's fine for
Okay,
representation purposes.
okay. Восставшие, that's our another mid-tier guild. They have two rosters. Recently got the second one. Arch enemy are their allies, and our low tier has a lot of guilds involved in it, starting from White Guardio, Upgrade, Grand Horde. I might forget someone. I don't want to feel bad for them. Fighting Foxes. Actually, a lot of guilds, maybe up to 15, maybe 20 guilds that I forgot. I'm very sorry if I just can't tell on the top of my head.
How many people would you say these three factions have total each?
In total, I would say, well, we have around 300, maybe 20 people, maybe 330. Preds have something around that, 300 give or take. White Ravens have probably more than 250, but less than 300. So yeah, something around 1K active Siege players.
Okay, that's quite a lot, I would say. And how is the like? Are there actually sieges? Are there actual fights every week,
Yeah.
or are people avoiding each other, which is something that happens quite frequently, at least in Europe?
Now, well, if we look at, for example, United Sieges for the last maybe 4 months, we have a fight every week, every Saturday. The only period that we didn't have fights was when the update regarding Siege Wars rewards went live. I think that was July, if I'm not mistaken. We had 3 empty sieges because White Ravens were capturing Medaya for themselves. Prets were on Valencia, and our community was in Calphion. And I think that was 3, maybe 4 months. After that, we had actual fighting sieges every single week. And for example, the last 2 sieges, how they went, this week's siege was, I think, 18 forts on Calphion. Well, not a lot of them actually fighting forts, but 2 White Raven forts, 4 United forts, 2 Pretz forts, and some other small guilds like White Guardio, Grand Horde that were on our side. Oh, actually, no. 3 Pretz forts were there. They had 3 guilds there, but one of them was almost empty. So yeah, the wars are kind of big most of the time, and it just comes down to who chooses whose side. Well, usually White Ravens choose Pret's side, but that doesn't really matter. So we have fights at least for an hour, at least maybe 2 hours. Sometimes sieges go very long for maybe even 3 hours. So yeah, I would say Russian region compared to other regions is currently, I hope for a long time, currently the most active one regarding territory sieges and the most crowded one. And that's becoming a problem because out of 3 weeks of Calphion Siege, 2 of them were laggy as hell and impossible to play.
Yeah, I was about to say like with that many people, performance must be a bit rough.
It's 7th year of the game, I think, after the Korean release, and they still are having issues on the Russian region because it's very crowded. And nobody knows the issue. Like, is the issue within the amount of people that is on the siege, or is the issue with the amount of forts being placed on the siege territory? I have no idea, and that's something definitely to be addressed to PA, because well, as we all know, Korea is dead regarding siege content, and they're trying to revive it, but nothing happens. So yeah, PA needs to kind of get involved on saving probably the most crowded region in siege content, just by giving us proper servers, doing something with that.
With these many forts, how much organization is there between guilds? Like, do they organize even between enemies to fight each other, or is it more natural?
Between our own communities, obviously we're organized. Like for example, we have 3 to 4 forts within United, and we just place them like almost within 1 second. That's obviously coordinated. But within our opponents, no, it's not really coordinated because, for example, Pretz and us, we just have a holy war on Calphion all the time. So we just place our forts and fight. That's, after the siege is done, you know that the next week you're going to be in the same place with the same people and nothing's gonna be a problem for you.
Okay.
And regarding Valencia, nobody really wants to fight in Valencia because of the gear cap. That's it's just outrageous. You grind gear, you grind your 700 plus gear score, and then you're forced to fight on Valencia that has what 650 give or take
Yeah.
cap, and that's just something PA also needs to change because nobody wants to fight in the Calphion terrain. Everybody wants to fight on the flat ground of Valencia, where you don't really have any lags or problems with the geodata. But just because the Calphion is the only territory without the gear cap, you're forced to fight it every now and then. Like every week, you just know you don't have any option. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Big
kind of
glitch.
weird. At least in EU back in the days, Calphen was like the middle tier guild. Siege in Valencia was the top tier guild siege.
Yeah, same was in Russia
And
back in the day.
now, I mean, it's reversed.
Yeah, it's also the fact that, well, there's a lot of things they can do about it. They can just lift up the cap from Valencia. They can make a flowing gear cap. Like you have 1 week of Calphion Unlimited, second to the second week it's Valencia Unlimited, and it's gonna be just better for the guilds to adapt to different terrain. Like the, well, I would say in comparison, the Russian siege organization is probably, well, I don't know in depth about other regions, but from what we do, I could judge we're probably the most, fanatic about it because we have something that's called pre-siege organization. Well, probably something that's a thing in EU. Pre-siege organization means that you have to find a place for your fort. For example, sometimes we place our Saturday forts on Sundays because I don't know, maybe Pretz wants to take the best spots on Calphion and it's like 3 a.m. in the morning and somebody calls me by phone saying that Pretz is placing their forts and we need to react with our own forts, not to stay like under Calphion or in bad spots that can't be built properly. So yeah, we take it very hardcore. I don't know how it's in other regions, but sometimes our pre-siege preparation starts like 1 week before siege, before the actual siege. We have scouts that monitor the territory 24/7. Like 7 a.m. in the morning, you come to the territory to just place your fort to check if it's available in that same spot. Within 5 minutes, somebody from the war guild just comes around looking for you.
Okay, can you actually describe what goes on in the average week from your guild point of view?
Okay, so our average week is mixed with probably three types of content. One is obviously field fights. Uh, Recently, the last week, our field fights were kind of massive in Hadum, Serendia. So it was like, for example, yesterday, 11 p.m., we had a 40v40 fight with Preds, well, give or take. That's something we do on a weekly basis. Also, how do you call in English the mob spot with accuracy rings? That spawns daily.
Monastery,
Yeah,
abandoned
monastery.
monastery.
Oh, yeah, same thing as us. Okay, so we have the abandoned monastery team, around 20 people. Well, same thing with Preds. They have also like 20, 25 people that are actually sniping the elites. So we also have PvP for those elites on a daily basis. Node Wars, well, I could say that, well, Node Wars could be more interesting in the Russian region, but because Russians like to exploit stuff, there is a problem with the Node Wars that, for example, if one guild starts attacking a second guild, and the second guild has another siege on another territory, another node with the guild number 3, Guild number 1 can just ignore the fort that it's attacking for the guild number 2 and just travel anywhere on the territory, doesn't matter which node it is, and fight with the guild number 1. I don't know if you know that in the EU region, but I think I spoiled someone's node wars now.
How do you do that?
If you have an active siege with someone, you
Okay.
can kill their members anywhere on the map. So, for example, you're attacking a node of, well, let's say Pretz is attacking our fort, United, and United is attacking another node of White Ravens. If Pretz doesn't kill our fort that it's attacking, they can just come to the other raid where we're fighting White Ravens and fight with us.
Okay.
They cannot damage the siege buildings nor our fort, but they can fight us in the field. As if it was a field fight, not a siege war.
Okay.
So yeah,
I
that's
see, I
something
see.
that needs to be fixed, I guess. Well,
Yeah.
probably maybe it's something PA actually did intentionally. It does bring some strategic stuff into sieges, but it also brings a lot of chaos. Like you don't know how what to expect from the siege because somebody from the other side of the map that just is attacking your node can just come to your node, which you're fighting 1v1, and can spoil the fight. Well, not that it happened too much, but somebody used it on our server. It's nothing like it's not a bannable issue. It's just something that works, and you
Okay.
can use it. Siege wars aren't that active as I would like them to because everybody's kind of, well, not afraid, but nobody wants to just place a fort to fight a 1v1 and then end up fighting 3v1 or 2v1.
How does the siege, I guess, preparation goes beside the scouting, as you mentioned during the
The
week?
siege preparation, well, for most of it, it's just mapping, like choosing the best spot and reacting. Like once you see that either you're committed to a certain territory, as us for Calpheon, we placed our forts for the siege war, I think, on Sunday last week. Like after the siege ended, we just placed our forts, and you just wait until the siege actually starts. And while you do that, you obviously scout the territory. Once somebody places a fort, yeah, just boom, the scouts go on and check where exactly the fort was placed. And I'm not even talking about stuff, things like spies and other guilds and stuff like that. I'm sure everybody has that. So yeah, that's our siege preparation. We just have to know the terrain, have to know our plan, who are our enemies, which guilds are stationed where. Depending on that, we kind of choose our strategies. For example, like this week, the strategy of Pretz and White Ravens was that they agreed to GVG 2v2 with their two guilds. So their goal was to get rid of United, obviously, and then just fight 2v2. That was for this week. Last week, we had a community versus community derby with Pretz. There was only us and them on the territory. They had four forts. We also had four. And we just had a 1v1 community-wise, which we won, barely, but won. And I think we're not getting a 1v1 fight anytime soon because, like, obviously White Ravens wants to be involved in the, high tier war because they're capable of it. But the problem of being the third guild on the server, it doesn't matter how strong you are, you always have to pick a side.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. Before we move on to like modern day BDO, I still have a few questions for, I guess, the past.
Okay.
And one was, let's try to kind of keep the same theme. You said there's a holy war between you and Pretz.
Yeah.
Do you know where does a beef start, and how did yours start? If it had a start, if it was
Okay.
something specific or
Well,
just evolved.
something that's common for Russia, it's not even a BDO unique. Russian holy wars start from the forums. Before the game is released, like 2 years before release, the holy wars start from there. Because the Russian community is pretty active in MMORPGs, but the veterans are always the same people. So if they fight each other, for example, in any game, be that Lineage, Arcade, any new game, they come around each other, and the Holy War starts from the server, from the forums, and then it develops into the actual game. The Holy War with personally me and Pretz, for example, started with the story of kind of being the best guild on the server, but quote unquote using third-party software to get to achieve that. That was something outrageous for me personally, and currently I would say the most of the people that are fighting each other, like it's Pretz and United, most of the Holy War comes from there. It's mostly people that have been damaged, lesser or more damaged by those scenes that happened at the launch of the game. So it's yeah, it's kind of long going war because of the hatred between people,
Okay.
and it doesn't really stop, to be honest. Like
Were the fish botters ever banned?
yeah, some fish bows were actually banned that were like too ballsy,
Okay.
but not massively, I would say.
Okay. You also mentioned a big siege where 100 people defended versus 600.
Yeah.
Was there any other like epic moment in the history of the Russian server, or at least the first few years, something like that worth mentioning? I'm not necessarily talking about siege stuff. Could be other in-game related things.
Well, if you're not talking about siege content, what was epic? Well, one of the leaders of Pretz once logged in to the leader of Fire Scorpions. He had his account somehow, and placed a node fort for Fire Scorpions, just point blank into the fort of Pretz, and they just wiped them in 15 minutes. Pretz wiped Fire Scorpions in 15 minutes.
Okay.
That was something to remember. Also, the same leader of Pretz once logged in on one of my members' accounts, which was by that time like 2 years ago, 700 gear score plus, pay to win whale. He's actually from EU. You probably remember a guy named Arshe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the Musa.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
one of my members
Okay.
in the Russian server, and yeah, one of the Pretz leaders logged into his account to record a YouTube video to showcase PA vulnerability that everyone could log into everybody's account, which was, that created an outrageous hype about it.
Okay.
What else happened?
That's kind of crazy. Let's talk about pay to win real quick, because you mentioned
Okay.
700 gear score 2 years ago. How pay to win is the Russian server?
Well, I would say after Lineage, Russian servers don't really, we don't mind pay to win because it's something common for us. We probably mostly mind the fact that we cannot trade between each other because usually on Russian servers, uh, Russians have something called like, I think it's the same in EU, cons parties. I think you heard that term. I'm not sure, but anyways, the cons parties come from Lineage for a long time, which basically means that people just unite with each other and always play the game together. Doesn't matter, they farm, they PvP, they do some activities in the game, and since Lineage to Arcade, cons party was something that always consolidated the things you farm within players that actually need it. For example, gold, gear, and stuff like that. So we never minded pay to win because we found mechanics that helped us boost ourselves even if we're free to play. BDO though, well, it had some issues after the trade was cancelled because if I remember correctly, the trade was within the game on CBT3 of Korea and was deleted from the game on open beta. And there still was a way to transfer silver uh, through food and selling it on the auction house, but that also was removed. So, anyways, cons party stuff became irrelevant pretty quick. Uh, Although pay to win in BDO in Russia was most of the part spending money on piloting, obviously, and not a lot of people were actually pay to win using the shop to sell costumes and gain silver. That was probably the most irrelevant thing to do, but we had some, maybe 20 whales from the start of the game that actually did it. I think we had 4 Tet Ogre rings on the third week of the game, something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Okay, one, two, three, at least 3 persons I know personally, and I think 2 more had Tet Ogre ring within the first month of the game. Well,
It's crazy.
they were just pay to winning, like selling costumes within hundreds, and
But I don't think new players could really understand what that means.
yeah, me
That's
neither.
actually crazy for for those times. So connecting to the pay to win topic, and correct me if I'm wrong here. Russia had another server that was subscription model
Yes, we did.
with not pay to win, um, and I know it closed, right?
Yep, it merged with the free-to-play server.
Can you tell me kind of like what was the server about and just how much you can tell me about it? Because it was really hard to get information at the time
Okay,
about it.
the concept with our subscription server was the following. When GameNet launched the pre-orders for BDO, uh, it was determined that on launch of Russia, there will be 2 servers from the launch, free to play and pay to play, the subscription one. So at the start of things, everybody pre-ordered the max package to be able to play. I think it was 1 year of subscription for the pay to play server, and I think a 3 day head start. If I might be wrong. So yeah, every big guild, every competitive guild was expecting to play on the subscription server. Preds, Just Play, who eventually became the top guilds on free to play, they all were waiting for the subscription server. And I think around 2 weeks before the launch, maybe 1 month before the launch, GameNet announced that the subscription server is going to be delayed until February, uh, which was outrageous for some people. Even I heard some of the people went to court blaming GameNet for fraud and scam with the pay-to-play server, but nothing happened regarding that. I think even one of the federal Russian channels had a news topic regarding the GameNet, quote unquote scam. So yeah, everybody was waiting for the subscription server, which didn't happen, and they got a choice. Either they get a premium for the free-to-play server for 1 year, or they do not play free-to-play until the subscription server comes out. Regarding the siege meta on the subscription server, I can't really talk too much about it. I just know they had maybe 5 guilds participating in the siege wars. Well, probably more, but 5 guilds that I could remember. And the server wasn't as crowded. So at the last days, at the last months of the subscription server, it was pretty much empty. People who merged with the free to play server came to the free to play server as billionaires because they had like a lot of jewelry stocked up because they were just farming spots that were never contended, no wars, no anything. So that's what happened to the pay to play server. I'm guessing it was closed because GameNet already knew that sooner or later PA is gonna take their license, and PA wasn't planning to actually have 2 servers on the Russian region.
It's kind of unfortunate. I think that the fact that the subscription server came out after kind of made it impossible for it to really succeed.
The subscription server came out, I think, the same month with EU release, so the subscription server didn't
Like
even
one
get
year?
all its audience. Yeah, I think it was on the same month,
Damn.
February, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and some
actually
people
rough.
just yeah, some people just left to play EU. For example, I started playing EU just for fun. We played like 3 months on Jordan with my Russian crew, and then I quit.
Last question about, I guess, the past of Russian video before we move to recent days, I guess. I think we have to mention the transfer from GameNet to PA, because there was something pretty big happening, and I guess it's better if you tell it from your perspective.
Well, I can't really tell too much because most of the things were talked about privately with the former GameNet employees. But in the end of things, they had a conflict between PA and GameNet, obviously. GameNet didn't want to give up Black Desert, well, because it's business. And PA wasn't going to have any business with GameNet either. So, as far as I know, they were starting some court cases regarding that, but rumors say that they got along with some cash grab, I think. Like, I'm not sure how much PA paid GameNet to give up any court issues they had with PA. But at the end of things, the risk was that GameNet would not handle in the databases of the current players, so we were on the risk of getting wiped entirely, maybe even merged with EU. I'm not sure, but it all came out better for everyone, I guess. Well, personally, me, I don't know if BDO started from scratch at that moment. I'll be happy, probably, but it is what it is. GameNet handled in the databases of the players, and the merge was pretty smooth, even though it took them 1 month, I think. Yeah, 1 month.
Okay, so let's finally move to today,
Okay.
Russia today. You mentioned a lot of big siege guilds. Is small scale a thing in Russia? Like, is there any small scale gear, or it's not really
Medaya.
something that happens?
Medaya is the small scale guild PvP place, I would say. Node Wars, obviously, after the player cap was implemented, territory-wise.
Hmm.
Small scale is a thing, but not within the high tier gameplay. Like high
Okay.
tier gameplay means that you gotta have a Zerg, you gotta have a disciplined Zerg, and that Zerg has to be geared. That's like everything you need to have in the high war PvP scene.
What would you say
And
is the average gear score of the top Russian guilds?
690 plus,
Okay.
at least.
And mhm. And what is the meta class wise? Is there a meta?
Yeah. Meta is Corsairs. Do you call that class Corsairs in EU?
Cursor, yeah.
The new one. Yeah.
Succession or Awakening?
Succession. That's the siege meta.
Okay.
Plus a lot of melees, Valkyries and Guardians. Plus a lot of mages. Awakening male mages. What else is in meta? A few good geared rangers per raid, maybe up to 5. Shies, obviously. Succession Novas. Who did
Okay.
I forget?
Berserkers? Are Berserkers not
Um,
really a thing?
maybe 2 Cannon Berserkers.
Really?
Very high geared. Yeah, not really
Okay.
a massive thing for us. Sages were a good meta 2 months
Mm.
ago.
And yeah, before
Eventually
the
got killed.
yeah. How about
Um,
Novas?
Succession Novas.
So Awakening is not really present in.
Awakening is kind of a glass cannon. I think we have
Mhm.
like maybe 2 or 3 players out of the whole mass of the large scale PvP players that actually play it. And it's a glass cannon. So it's
Okay.
like,
So what I'm kind of understanding is like very blob and slow heavy. It's like a lot of
well, I wouldn't
very hard
say
hitting.
slow. I would say our fighting dynamic, especially when we have kiting abilities terrain wise, it's really dynamic. It's not slow, but it's blob wise, yeah, blob heavy for sure. But the actual fights are pretty fast. Like maybe 100v100 fight will last less than a minute.
Hmm.
With all the heals, with all the protection areas, even with
And
all that, the fight lasts maybe 1 minute, up to 1 minute max.
mhm. How long
Yeah.
did you guys have the new node wars?
I think it's like 2 months now.
Okay, so same as you. And what's the opinion?
Well, the opinions vary. For example, my own opinion, it's a good idea, but bad concept. Yeah, well, good concept, but the way they did it is kind of bad.
Mm.
Uh, Second opinion is that sieges every day is outrageous. That's public opinion. For me, it doesn't really matter. For me, sieges every day is okay. It's just fine for me. I like to raid lead, so it doesn't really bother me. But for people that actually, like to take their time regarding developing their character, 2 node wars a week were more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
And node wars every week eventually become a chore for everyone, especially for the top tier guilds, which have their personnel like scouts and stuff like that. So it's actually necessary to balance it out because people get burned out, obviously, when they have to play the game 4 hours a day just riding around siege territories rather than just, grinding, having just fun with their friends. So yeah, I would say PA doesn't really understand uh, how the PvP content needs to work. They do not have the picture, the in-depth picture of the Russian region on how we, treat siege content, and I don't think they understand that making it a daily basis content, they actually make it an actual job for probably 15 people per high tier guild, which is something they obviously need to take in notice to actually get to know the player base. Well, if they're interested in it, obviously.
How well do you think the Russian community is represented and heard by PA?
I don't really remember a lot of our feedback being heard in PA, like something that we asked to change or noticed, some bug fixes that have to be done. I can't really remember those on the top of my head, but I think we're heard pretty evenly with other regions, despite the fact that I would say EU has more influence. EU and NA has more influence to PA, just because I don't know, it's probably the most, I would say, public region for them because a lot of big streamers of BDO are actually from NA and EU rather than from Russia. So that's why the voices of the players are heard more often than ours.
I guess you also recently had the best in class tournament, right? The
Uh,
1v1 tournament for classes.
I don't remember the 1v1 tournament. I think we had it in August, if I'm not mistaken. We had a 3v3 captains tournament like recently.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Who won the guild tournament for you? For
First place, team from United. Second place, team from Prets. Third place, team from United. Fourth place, team from Prets.
Okay, pretty well even and spread out. Do you remember the classes? I'm kind of curious.
Yes, the team from United that took first place, Succession Valkyrie, Awakened Wizard, Awakened DK.
Really?
Yeah,
Awakened
that's
Wizard.
yeah, Awakened Wizard.
Evasion?
Yes,
Okay.
Hybrid Evasion.
Okay. Okay.
So the team that took second place from Pretz was Awakened Noah Glass Cannon, Awakened Giant, Succession Wizard. Third place, Awakened Giant, Awakened Lan, Succession Valkyrie. Fourth place, Awakened Striker, Awakened Corsair, and I don't remember their third teammate.
Okay. Going back to what I wanted to ask about the best in class tournament. So I think it's the same for you guys, where the winners were invited to a conversation with PA to give
Yes.
feedback to the class. So far, especially on some classes, from our side, from the EU side, they feel very frustrated because everything that they asked was completely ignored. So there's a sentiment of why even ask if you're gonna completely ignore.
Yeah, I get it.
How do you?
Well,
How's the sentiment on Russia?
I didn't really have personal conversations with our people, with our players that attended that tournament and gave feedback to PA, but I just know PA too much. I don't think they acknowledged anything we advised them at all.
Okay. And what's your hope for the class reboot? How's it? How's the class reboot seen in Russia?
For me, as a raid leader, any kind of balance is terrible because I'm the one that's gonna go around TeamSpeak and ask everyone politely and gently to please reroll to a meta class. So for me, it's a nightmare. For
Okay.
players, well, I hope the players that stick to their class, for example, I don't know, strikers, are gonna be revived and the game becomes more fun for the people. But on the other hand, I really hope that people that actually play the meta classes today, not because they like them, but because it's a need within the siege scene, I just hope they do not get disappointed of PA just cutting down their investment into new classes because Russian meta switching is involving a lot of money and a lot of time because obviously when you reroll to actually perform on a class in a big siege, that means you are buying slots for the character, you are leveling it up, you are obviously spending money for the mirror. Oh, that's what we
Mhm.
call
The
the
Marni fuel.
yeah, Marnie fuel.
It is
And
cheaper than it used to be.
it is,
Back in the
but
days, rerolling was very hard.
yeah, it is cheaper, but the meta started changing too fast, so
Hmm.
it might be cheaper, but you still need to spend on weight on your character, you need to level it up, you need to grind the skill points and stuff like that. So the faster the meta changes, the lesser people actually want to follow the meta.
So you mentioned that you'll have to go around asking people to reroll to meta
Yeah.
classes, right? I'm kind of curious how you guys structure your own guild because you have such a big community of multiple guilds. How does it work for you, like during the siege, for example? How do you structure the whole siege and your raid composition? Do you actually force people to reroll, or I'm just curious about the entire structure of the guild.
Well, I wouldn't say we force people, but we kind of politely ask that if a person rerolls to something that's currently in meta, he's gonna perform way better. We use phrases like that. The structure within Siege and the entire community is pretty straightforward. So we use TeamSpeak, obviously, because there's no other program that can handle too much people at the same time, and especially when you have to talk with different groups of people. Our raid leaders are stationed in one room, and we talk with each other. Our scouts are stationed with us. Uh, Guild leaders that use the guild summon and guild buffs are also in the same room with us. That's probably around 15 people in total, maybe 10 people in total. And every raid leader talks to his own raid, his own guild, well, I would say, on a different whisper list within TeamSpeak. That's how the siege is structured. And
And
we have a global shotcaller for the siege flow. Like
okay,
some of the raid leaders also is the one who shotcalls our targets.
how does recruitment work in top guilds?
Well, recruitment works probably three ways. One of them is bringing fresh blood into the big siege scene. Some people from maybe even PvE guilds or small PvP guilds that achieved a lot of gear score on their characters. They want to develop within the big siege scene and they come to one of the three sides of the current scene which they like the most. Second is the transferring between the guilds. Somebody had a conflict within the guild, left the guild, and obviously there's only two options left to be in the top tier scene. So not that much of a choice for them. And the third one, well, that's pretty much uh, friends and RMT involved. Like somebody just leaves the guild to play with his friends. Somebody leaves the guild for some extra cash shop money, maybe even actual money. So, for example, my guild has weekly based tournaments that we run 3v3 random teams with a small prize pool, like $100. But that's something that might motivate someone to come and play with us.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't talk about other guilds because I don't know the inner kitchen of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that can be involved in the Russian region, and I don't see anything bad in that. Especially when, like something like community tournaments happen here and there. For example, our December tournament that we're running, I think the prize pool nominally is, let me transfer that, around 3.5k USD.
Really?
Yeah, it's like 2k in prizes and 360 Ti for viewer prize.
Damn.
Like,
Okay. You mentioned the best classes, right?
yeah,
I'm wondering what you think are the worst siege classes.
the worst siege classes. Well,
Like,
uh,
give me a bottom 5.
okay, let's, despite some talented players that actually do stuff on these classes, Sork, Tamer, Musa, uh, Meva, and probably Lan. That's the top 5. But there's a lot of classes I wouldn't want in my raid, to be honest. This is way more.
What does Russia think about Offin?
Well, I don't know what we think about it, but I surely know we don't really use it.
Okay.
It's pretty useless, to be honest, especially after Black Star came out.
How do Russians see the other regions like Korea, EU, and A?
Well, Korean region for us is probably, we treat them as the most veteran and because of that the most inactive PvP wise region because we keep track. We have two, I think, Russian YouTubers that used to update the Korean scene because they were living near Korea in Russia. Russia is pretty big, so they couldn't play Russian servers properly because of the ping, but they could easily play the Korean servers. So we had some info from the Korean servers, and our thinking of Korea is that yeah, they are hardcore players. They definitely grind a lot, but people that are involved in big siege wars are highly limited. I think currently it's like two, maybe three guilds, 100-man guilds is what I'm saying in the current Korean scene, which has we have like 1K. With EU, it's obviously a lot better. I would say EU is the closest region regarding PvP attendance with RU because I had my time playing on EU. I could tell the difference. But the difference between Russia and EU PvP Siege War content is that we take this too personally. We have a lot of personal conflicts with each other, which are, pretty serious. Well, not that we kill each other in real life, but we have a lot of problems with each other. That's not something that is massive in EU. Maybe a few people here and there, but not, guild wise, I would say.
I'm not sure if you've heard, but there's this supposed leak slash rumor around that there's gonna be a Russian versus EU siege
Oh,
soon.
it's not a leak. It was announced on our PA stream that was recently. It was regarding 3 year of PA service in Russia, and
Okay.
yes, they said that GVG cross server siege is gonna happen between EU
Oh,
and
they
Russia.
confirmed it.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
They said
Uh,
like briefly, like 10 seconds in
okay,
one sentence, like, yeah, there's gonna be a cross service. Yeah, nobody knows when,
okay.
nobody knows how, nobody knows the rules, but Russian region is already speculating regarding who is gonna attend that siege.
Uh-huh.
And because we have many inner issues between each other, it's gonna be pretty hard for us to team up,
Yeah,
actually.
it's actually if it's the same as it was in the other cross server regions, if I remember correctly, it was 2 guilds per side. 2 to 3 guilds.
Yes,
I'm not
it
100%.
was 2 guilds per
It's two,
side,
right?
the owners of Calphion and the owners of Valencia.
Yeah. Being as honest as possible, as blunt as possible, how do you think EU versus Russia would go from your
Uh,
point of view?
there's a joke within Russians that when Russians go to a cross-server PvP event, it comes from not it just doesn't come from BDO, it comes from every games. Yeah, so when Russia attends a cross-server event against other regions, you're gonna be lucky if you won't see Russians fighting each other. So
Okay.
I would say we have a lot of chances to defeat EU if we manage to talk around our conflicts with each other. For example, me personally, I'm not talking about other guilds or any of my members. Me personally, I'm ready to close my eyes on any kind of personal issues. We had a lot of them, even involving real life. Uh, I'm ready to close my eyes on it if Russian PvP scene actually commits to making a 200 people all-star attendance to the cross-server siege. And I think we
So the
have a lot of
biggest fight
chances.
is with yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's
Fair
just
enough.
because we have a lot of people playing within the high tier sieges. Like even if we take out the smaller guilds of every community, for example, third guilds, fourth guilds, we have at least 4 very strong 100-man rosters within Preds, White Ravens, and United. And it's only 200 people going to that cross-server siege.
Hmm.
So yeah, we have a lot of, talking about diplomacy to do.
How do you guys see the future of the game?
Well, I'm not gonna lie if I'll say that everyone in the Russian region thinks that it's about time PA does what they say in time or don't say it at all. Because they promised the new PvP content as if arenas and battlegrounds 10v10 in autumn this year. And it's 29th November. Nothing happened.
Hmm.
And I think the new sieges that arrived like 2 months ago were announced almost a year ago. I would advise PA to first of all know their actual manpower resources that they can, achieve within a certain amount of period, because there is a large player base that voice out one opinion that PA makes too much promises and does very little of those promises, not even half. So, regarding the PvP expansion that they want to do regarding arenas, any new content regarding PvP is greeted in a good way in Russia, because PvP in open world is good, it's fine, but it's something that happens here and there and isn't on a regular basis. You can have a lot of fights daily within 1 week, and then you can have just 2 weeks of Farmville. Nobody likes that. So if people are gonna have an option to play competitive ranking in a 10v10, 5v5 scenario, obviously that will keep people in the game. Uh, and I would really advise PA to do that before Lost Ark EU comes out, because if they do
Yeah.
not bring up arenas until then, they will lose a large player base that is arena oriented.
Yeah, for sure. So you think the Russian community wants arenas?
Yeah, obviously we do.
Okay.
We even nostalgically remember the Shadow Arena content, which was a shit fest regarding cheaters, but it still was good PvP content to have
Hmm.
fun with.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
they're
yeah,
actually.
any kinds of arenas is good. I mean, Red Battlefield, yeah, it's fine, but it's been around for like 5 years. It's time for a change.
Thank you so much for taking your time for this interview.
Thank you for
Uh,
inviting me. It was a
I
pleasure.
I hope you had fun. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, hopefully this brings the two communities together a bit more and gives some preparation for both of us for the upcoming siege.
Yeah, we're looking forward for a siege against another region, just because like we want to face new opponents, we want to meet new people and see how the game is played like outside of Russia. So yeah, I hope that PA didn't make a empty promise, and we'll see a cross-server siege within, I don't know, at least a half a year. I hope.
All right, well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a nice day, and we'll see you in Siege.
Thanks. See ya. Bye bye.